Hey everybody, looks like we are live for part 3, and boy did I just make it. I actually couldn't find the painting. It was in a folder, but it was like underneath something and where I put the folders. So it goes to show you, no matter how organized you can be, you still can actually lose something. So I'm so glad everyone is here. That makes me very happy. Let's take a look and see exactly. Okay, here I am. So let me turn off that overhead light. I don't really need it. And it kind of draws off the color. There we go. Okay. So let's see what we have today. So who we have today? We have Willie. Always great to see you, sir. We have Blue. Great to see you. And Roy. And Steve Leahy, how's it going? Good to see you. Total Pain John. We have Patty, great to see you. And Colette, of course, always great to see you. John Diekman. And Steve said he lost his marbles. I always wanted marbles as a kid, but I never got them. I don't know what for. Maybe my parents thought I would swallow them. I don't know. But I was never able to get the marbles. So I never had marbles to lose, Steve. I think that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead, assess the situation, and then go into it. I didn't get a chance to work on it at all in between or anything like that. So I have an itchy nose. So today the drink is a green cold pressed juice that I did myself. It has spinach, celery, apples, lime, lemon, and ginger. So tastes very good, very healthy, gives me energy because Lord knows I need energy. That's for sure. How's the sound and the picture quality today? Okay? Oh, Toodles on Peter Pan. No, I never seen that. I actually never seen Peter Pan from the beginning to end. I don't know why. Just never got around to it, sir. So let's go ahead and work on the color here. Let's see. Hey, Nameless. How's it going? Good to see you. Oh, I'm glad we notified you in time, or I notified you in time, so I'm glad about that. So let's go ahead and focus this, and let's see if we can adjust the colors a little bit, just a little bit better, just like so, just making it more like the original painting, the best I can do, right? And then this is a little on the orange side. So let's see if I can reduce some of, yeah, that's just like that. And let's see, can I go this way? Nope, this is probably the best. So I think we're okay right now, which is good. And let's see, okay. So let's get our reference up. So I'm going to see if I can find a reference for you all. Let's see, media. And then I just have to find the reference material for, so you all can see what I'm working on. There she is. And, where is she? Perhaps under downloads. I think that's where she is. Okay, so there you see the reference material that I'm working on. And we'll make her a little bit bigger for everybody. And let's see, what else can we do? And then I have to bring my reference up. If you don't have PureRef, pureref.org, I highly recommend you get it. It's fantastic. You can have it always on top of all the other windows. So whenever you use other programs, it stays on top. You can enlarge, shrink, you can flip, and it's really great. And if you do work from your computer screen, it definitely is the best program out there, without a doubt. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in just so I can focus. When you have a DSLR, you're able to zoom in, and this way you can, once you zoomed in, you could micro focus, and then you know that. So you see right here I'm focused, but I can zoom in even again, and I can even focus even more minutely. There we go. Okay, so fantastic. Let's get my light mixture here. Always, oh, your initial spray should always be on test paper. Preferably paper that is similar or the same as what you're working on, because how can you test on something that, hey Raul, good to see ya. Wow, did you guys see Raul's painting? It's just amazing of Tupac. That just blew my mind. Way to go. That was something. 24 by 36 too. Great size. Okay, so always before you go in, really assess the situation. Really think about what you need to do. What is some of the things that could make or break your painting at this stage. And so I'm just going to really take my time and ask myself, okay, so what can I do to catch things up? So I see that we did work on the shoulder area here, not so much here, but over here by the deltoid. So I think we can definitely soften this edge over here by the sternum and the breast area, right? Definitely here. And then the back. So we're going to concentrate on that today, or right away. We're going to do a lot today, not just concentrate on that. So how's life treating you there, Willie? Always good to see you. So the main thing I'd like to do is definitely try and soften up some of these hard edges from the initial lay-in, and that takes some time. So you wanna definitely gradually get that, you know. Sometimes I'll actually erase the edge, but in the early going, everything is really super light, and what will happen is it might seem dark at this point, but it's actually going to be lighter than what it's going to be at the end of the painting. So I'll probably opt on darkening around it and going from there. If I need to erase later, that's okay. You want to be very economy minded when erasing on paper. Remember, it's just paper, and you can only have a finite amount of erasing that you can do. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to put my keyboard down just because it's on my leg and it's kind of distracting. So let me just put this over here. There we go. When painting, always try and be as comfortable as possible. And always remember, you want to make sure that you're turning the forms, right? You want things to turn towards the light and away from the light. So always think of that when you're working. Very important. So I have to go ahead and put some light mixture into my airbrush. And the important thing is to find it. So these are the inks that I do use. So this is my light mixture. And I use this for most of the painting. These are pre-diluted inks, and I always change or reload the ink far away from my painting. Very crucial, because splashes and splatters do happen. Make sure the top is nice and tight. Do some tests over to the side. Well before. Sorry about that. There we are. So you see this clavicle right here? This clavicle right here is a three-dimensional form. So the light is coming from above and to the left. So that means everything facing above and to the left is going to get light. Everything that's below and to the right is going to get shadow. And everything in between is going to have a combination of light and shadow. Yeah, sorry about that. The wrong, had the wrong camera on there. Sorry about that. And it's a good opportunity to work on some of the drawing here. You can see right over here a little bit of the other side of the clavicle is there, and we definitely could calm that value down. Same thing here, calm down that value. Yeah, that was true. Yeah, too much dark mixture on that one screenshot. So you can't help but to, when you work on a certain area, to bleed out to other areas. You really, that's just natural for the course because you're working on edges, you know, and sort of like a domino effect. And you guys can see me now, right guys? Oh, that's good. Let me know when you hear Blue, definitely from Wendy. I can actually bring back what I'm going to do. I don't want to just touch the background. I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the positive shield here. And we'll just keep things clean. Keep it rated PG-13. No, just clean as far as keeping the edges clean and not getting messy. Not rated PG-13. And remember, when you put this on there, make sure you put the magnets close to the edge. You want to limit billowing. Billowing, bellowing, billow, not bellow, because bellow would be like yelling. And we want to limit yelling as much as possible as well. Okay, so now we can maintain that beautiful edge there. Oh, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. And so you see we're really taking our time working here. Remember, when you want to get tighter detail or smaller areas, that always means you have to actually go ahead and get closer, the airbrush closer to the surface, and that's when you can get tighter detail. Still with the 1 second rule, very crucial. And I'm pumping that trigger. So you see we have a voided area right now, but in the photo you can see there's a lot of texture and it's much darker. So you don't just want to pull back on the trigger and just fill that in as if it was a textile or something. You don't want to do that. So, and that's one of the reasons why you want to pump that trigger and move around. Create spaces in between each application, micro application of ink or paint, whatever you're working on, and then you're going to be able to get a texture. But if you're doing the 1 second rule, you'll definitely see the variations of tone. It's not just one sharp value, but there's a lot going on there, and that's what you want to do. And it's not just going on there, let's say, you know, just arbitrarily. It's going on there because her skin is over muscle and bone, and so that muscle and bone is turning towards the light and away from the light ever so slightly, like in her chest here, right? You know, where her sternum is in the top part, it's facing the light a little bit more. And as it turns away, it turns away from the light. It's more going in a direction of the lower left as opposed to the upper right. And those are the variations of value. But they're happening so slow that, you know, if you're pumping the trigger, you're really going to catch it a lot better. And the 1 second rule is really crucial. So definitely, there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot of decisions you have to make at the same time. Don't feel like you have to get it all at once, but just know the parameters and what you need to do, and just keep working on it. And before you know it, you'll be thinking about those 3 things all at once. I really feel that the skin stencils, skin texture stencils are good. If they help you, that's great. But I also recommend doing this stuff as well, you know, pumping that trigger, creating a space in between where you're putting your value. And once again, not arbitrarily, but really looking and thinking, okay, what is turning towards the light, what's turning away from the light, while you are actually pumping that trigger, and also trying to get the tone, but also the texture. So some might ask, Tim, what do you mean by pumping the trigger? You know, it's like maybe I'm not explaining myself well, but so I'm gonna put this really close, and let's see if I can focus. Okay. So when I'm pumping that trigger, I'm gonna get an airbrush that isn't on, so that would help. So right here I have my background airbrush, which is my modified Vega 1000, beautiful airbrush. when I'm pumping that trigger, I have the air down all the time, and I'm just doing these micro vibrations back and forth as I go. And so you have to find, when you're painting, of course, when is that moment when you're pulling back, you just start to get ink or paint. So, and then that happens, and I just keep going back and forth like that, turning it on, turning it off. Air is still going on, air is always coming out, but I'm just opening the liquid gates, right? Opening and closing that gate really fast. So I'm sort of getting a stuttering effect, right? And I'm doing that as I'm moving. Now, the important thing is that you're moving. If you're just standing still and you're pumping the trigger, you're just going to get, you know, an even area. You don't want that. You want the uneven quality. So you're pumping that trigger back and forth. I'm only pumping it to where I start to see the actual ink come out. So, and then I'm pumping it, but I'm moving around as I'm pumping it. As I'm pumping the trigger, I'm also doing the 1 second rule. So I'm looking, and then I'm pumping, and then I'm looking, and then I'm pumping, and I'm moving. And those things, if you can do that, you'll have control, you'll have your observational skills. On top of that, you also want to think about the light and shadow. Is this area turning towards the light? Is it turning away from the light? Those are things. When you're doing portraiture, you also want to worry about the grain of the skin. And I know I talk about that all the time, but I can't tell you how important the grain of the skin is. It's not important, it's absolutely crucial, the grain of the skin. So let me see if I can show you an example of why I feel the grain of the skin is important. This is a commission that I'm working on of Audrey Hepburn. And here you can see, let me just move everything aside. So I don't have the luxury of having strong lights and darks in this particular painting. So I have to make things turn by really concentrating on the grain of the skin. And when you do that, that's when you can actually, when you have limited lights and darks, by concentrating on the grain of the skin, you can accentuate the 3D quality of your model. Remember, she, at this time that this photo was taken, she was a three-dimensional form that had light going on her, and the light was being interrupted by the forms of her nose and the cheek and the eyes and the hair and all those different things. So that's where the grain of the skin is important. So what we were talking about is pumping the trigger, making sure that you're doing your 1 second rule, but also the grain of the skin, which is also going to help you, an added tool for you to go one step further in creating very realistic, believable forms on your paper. Hey Brad, how's it going? Good to see you. Oh, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And so, let's see. So, okay, so here we are. So let's go back to pumping the trigger with the light mixture. And we're going to have to refocus because we were doing the example of the airbrush and the trigger on the Vega 1000. There we go. Okay, so here we are. So we're looking, once again, we're looking at the area of her breast here. We're pumping that trigger back and forth. We're doing that 1 second rule, so we're paying attention to what we're painting. But we're also looking and seeing what is turning towards the light and what's turning away from the light. And of course, this is the very beginning part of this these forms, so it's not like you have to solve everything, but you definitely want to put down whatever you're putting down. You want to make sure there's a reason you're putting it down. See, we have a area, a hard edge here inside. These are called contours on the inside. They are outward contours, of course, but then there are also inner contours. And an inner contour, let me move this out of the way, would be this other breast right here. And so we're going to use our freehand shield. And again, we're going to go perpendicular and not parallel. See that? We're creating that hard edge. It's very crucial to create that hard edge, because if you don't, it just won't look like one form that is up against, buttressed against the other form. And those forms, of course, are the two breasts. So let's bring that back. And now we can work on this other breast here. Always bring those magnets close to your shield, and that will really help. Or your stencil. And once again, we're just gonna pumping that trigger. So did I say how much importance there is in pumping that trigger? I was just surprised to hear how many airbrush artists don't do that. But it's just such a advantage in control and creating skin texture that I really, if you don't, I really highly urge you to adopt this technique. Another thing is you always want to look at value relationships. So you see this is much lighter in my painting, but I want to make sure that my painting is echoing the reference. What's happening with the light and dark and the forms on the reference, I want it to mirror what's happening in my painting. If I want a lighter value, I'm just going to increase my distance. What that does, it makes the cone bigger. When it makes the cone bigger, the droplets of ink are further away from each other, creates more space, more texture, smoother gradations, and more control. Just really given a lot of information to you all today, which is great. You know, I'm happy to share. And you can see we have some darker areas right here, which is turning away from the light just a little bit. I'm going to make sure that we indicate that. And of course this right here, this area right here, let me just make this bigger. So I don't know if you can see right here, it's darker right by her shoulder area. I'm going to even make it bigger so you can see. Let me see how big I can make it. No, that's about as big as it goes there. So right by the shoulder area is where I'm really going to start hitting those darks. But I have to make sure that I catch up the adjacent area. Otherwise, it's just going to look too dark and it might not be as dark. So you have to make sure that you put as much value down on your painting. Cover as much of the painting as possible, and then you can gauge the values, because then you can see them relatively, you know, how they relate to one another. Okay, so you see how this is all super light? Well, that's because all this is super dark. That's because all this area is super light. So let's catch that up. I'm about 4 inches away from the subject right now. I'm dying to work over here, but I definitely want to cover this up first, so we'll get there. So, I know we want to go ahead and fix things and make things look perfect, and especially go into the eye and all that, but, all in its good time. We have to paint the ensemble first, right? It's so important to paint her as a whole person, not a series of features. Notice that you see I'm going with the grain of the skin, right? I'm not just painting, just laying down color. I'm thinking of the grain of the skin. That's going to pay dividends down the line when at the end I have this beautiful skin texture. Okay, so we'll just move that magnet out of the way. So you can see on this side how much darker that is. And it's also bringing her face in line too. Her face seems super dark. Now it's not so dark anymore, which is important, Oh, thanks, Steve. If I can inspire you guys to paint, that makes me happy. And you and Roy, if I can inspire that, that's what the live stream's all about. What would be perfect if you all were painting while watching my live stream. That would be the best of all worlds. Just pumping that trigger, getting that skin tone, looking at the grain of... Boy, you hear that plane? It sounds like we're being invaded. Wow. I have an airport not too far from here. I don't know if anyone has heard of Teterboro Airport, but I live like within a mile of Teterboro Airport. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me to watch the little, Piper Cub, those little single-engine propeller planes take off. It was a little tiny airport. Now they even have like huge DC-9s and stuff like that landing there. And sometimes, really, feels like we're being invaded. See, pumping that trigger, making it turn, and so it's important with the 1 second rule. The 1 second rule is always going to keep you honest. It's always going to keep your mind in the game. Oh, great, Raul. That's fantastic. I love that. And also blue is working, which is great. And so that's fantastic. Patty says she can't paint tonight, but she wants to. Strained her wrist. Oh, no. Oh, I hope you feel better. Just keep that rested. That's more important. Sometimes when we have a rest from painting is actually a good thing. Now you can see I can move up to the neck area, and I have my Pure Wrap. It doesn't show up on your screen, but I do have everything there, and I'm really looking at the larger areas first. We'll get like real micro details down the line, but I'm looking for the overall tonal structure as well as looking for the direction of the grain of the skin. Everything looks blotchy now. That's good. We have a lot of tools at our disposal to help us smooth things out as we go. And then we can see this is way out of line now. So this area is way too light. So we can calm that down. This little area here of the end of the actual clavicle, we can see that it's a three-dimensional form. And as it turns away from top to bottom, towards the bottom it gets darker, like over here. And then as it goes towards the top, it gets lighter. Side to side, so when it goes to the right, of course the light source is on the left. So when it goes to the right, it gets darker. So it's real, like we're light detectives. That's how I look at it. We're not even thinking about likeness right now. We're just being light detectives at this point. Always with the 1 second rule. That's always going to be your ace in the hole, is that 1 second rule. So now we have the idea of the shoulder right here, right? And with this shoulder area, the top part, I believe it's just below the acromion process, if I may be wrong. But you see this little ball right here. So we're definitely going to make that feel round. Okay. So we have more shoulder down here, which is great. Goes into her deltoid muscle. Just pumping that trigger back and forth. So you see we're doing a good job. Now, you're going to want to erase, but please refrain from that because you're saturating the paper. So you want to wait for that to dry, okay? It's so important to wait for that to dry. So just have a little bit restraint. I know it's not easy for me either. You don't want to rely on erasing. You want to describe the forms as you're painting as well, not just when you're erasing. You can refine them as you erase, of course, but you don't want to rely on that. So you want to be doing the 1 second rule as early as possible. Actually, from the very first moment. Lighten this up just a little bit. Let's see how we can do that. And just, there we go. That's a little better. Okay, so we're having this area pretty good. Let's bring this over so we don't have any voided areas where we're not paying attention. We want to cover everything, and that's going to get us to where we can really start interrelating the values and the edges. So again, you have the contours on the outside and then the inside. Here's an inside contour. Let's go ahead and use our freehand shield to reiterate this dark of the hair, but also create this beautiful edge of the nape of her neck. Perpendicular and not parallel. Make sure you wipe off your freehand shield as you go. Very important. You don't want to redirect paint. I'm not even thinking about the end of the painting. This is all about just surveying and looking and applying. The end of the painting is not even in the transiums of, I think that's the word, not even in the most remote part of my brain right now. And we're going to get darker here, so no worries. And then right here, we have a little bit of a dark right on this edge. There we go. All right. And so now we can start seeing areas like, okay, Tim, you know, we have to calm some of these areas down, that sort of thing. So that's very important. Oh yeah, you got very, you got hurt pretty well, you know, I remember that. You know, when that bale fell on you. I don't know, I remember you telling me. We didn't know each other then yet. Remember, you want to keep your, you know, your shields or your stencils. You want to the magnet close to the edge. You don't want everything trying to get underneath, because it will try and be successful, so no worries. I mean, once you put those magnets there, you won't have any worries about that. Again, we have to make sure we get these edges correct, and we can only do that by pumping that trigger. 1 second rule, grain of the skin. As it gets lighter, you just increase your distance from the airbrush from the paper. That's all. Let the airbrush do the work for you. Don't, you know, think that you have to lighten up the value or anything. Let the airbrush get those lighter values for you. Because when you increase distance, it just naturally lightens up. Naturally softens up. When you decrease distance, it naturally darkens and it naturally sharpens. So a lot of times you don't have to change values or stuff that I find. You don't have to. So you see how I'm softening this area up now? Hey Mama Llama, how you doing? How's everything? Now, oh, is that Sheila from Art and Design? So I'm not sure which Sheila that is. I know a couple of Sheilas. Hey, how you doing? Great to see you. I'm so excited, Sheila. Sheila and I went to the High School of Art and Design together. I remember Sheila did this one song in an assembly. Just the most talented singer in high school by far. Just magical, you know? Art and Design High School, what an amazing experience that was, Sheila, correct? So we lived in New York City, and in New York City, it still goes on today. If you're in junior high school and you exhibit special talents, you get to apply for a specialized high school. The most specialized high school in this program had that movie Fame and then the subsequent show Fame. And that was the School of Performing Arts. Well, us visual artists, us children who were good at art, had the opportunity to apply for the High School of Art and Design. And it was very difficult and very scary because they took the kids from all 5 boroughs who were talented in art and wanted to study art, and we had to have a portfolio review. And mind you, we're 15 years old. And a portfolio review, and then we had to actually take an art test. And this was not like a simple art test. This was like I remember, right, Sheila, we had to actually, they would give a scenario. Like I think there was a Martian that landed in New York City, and you had to actually draw that, and you only had a few minutes to do that, and that was just amazing. So right here, the paper is dry, so I can come in and start erasing a little bit. I felt unprepared, even though it was like months. Actually, I had like 6 months because I found out about it in 8th grade. So I applied in 9th for my 10th, 11th, and 12th years. But even with all that preparation, you're right, Sheila, I just felt so unprepared. And I remember it was a cold day in December, and I was just so anxious that I didn't get in. And, I was just so elated when I found out I actually got into that high school. And getting into that high school really shaped me, the most profound thing that shaped me as an artist, to get exposed to great art teachers at a young age, at 15 years old, right, Sheila? And there were also many different disciplines. There was illustration, there was painting, there was fashion design, photography, all within that class. And the students were actually from the industry. We had professional illustrators and gallery represented painters. Just so much. Just so fantastic. Oh, so you were lucky. You came in at 9th grade. Yes, I moved to New York City from New Jersey in 8th grade. And it wasn't until the 2nd semester of 8th grade that I found out about it. And then I was like determined in 9th grade I was going to try and get in. But that's great. You got in early, so you actually had an even better experience. So that's fantastic. I'm excited about that. Yeah, I mean, so many famous people have graduated from that high school. And I remember my portfolio when we were seniors in high school. And when we would show our portfolio to these colleges, they kept saying, like, to me, so you're 17. It's like, because we were so advanced to everyone else. Because remember, we had 6 periods of art a day in some semesters. I mean, how amazing. 6 periods of art a day. It was just amazing. Now what I'm going to do, since this darkened up, our face lightened up. So now we have to come in and do a lot more detail here in the face and darken things up a little bit. And as we darken, we work on texture at the same time. Yes, Art and Design High School. It was such a bummer when I left there, when we graduated, and we all had to go to the colleges. And it was sad but true. The art department on the colleges were, in a lot of ways, not as good as what we had in high school. That sucked. But it was true. Did you find that, Michelle, when you left and went to college, that some of the teachers just didn't stack up? Am I out of ink? Nope. Okay. Just making sure. Okay, let's zoom in, and we're going to work on the darker areas of the Cupid's bow. I recommend always, if a child exhibits talent in art, you know, get them to a good art teacher and a good art education as soon as possible. It's a little darker inside, just like right there. And then of course we have the trailing as it turns towards the light. Remember, the light's to the right, so that means as the Cupid's bow turns to the right, it gets lighter. And we're going to refine, of course, with the eraser. We have to wait till that dries. And we can also shape this, right here, we can shape this cast shadow that's from the nose onto that Cupid's bow. Or the philtrum, right? That's the word? Oh, that happens to a lot of kids, right, Blue? And so I'm so glad that you're taking your art seriously now, and your art is really growing, Blue. I'm looking at what you did today on Instagram, and I was really happy with what you did with the white highlights on the lips. That was really fantastic. And you too, Patty. I'm glad that you're able to take it seriously now and have a love for it, and you also are growing. And it's not how we begin, it's how we start that's most important. And you can see now that we're getting these deeper values, we have so much wiggle room to go, right? We have, as value wise, we have a lot of room to get texture. So if we are too dark, if we are too light, then we won't have the ability to get texture, and the highlights just won't stand out. Same thing, if we're too dark, then it's going to be real difficult to pull out those lights, the midtones and everything, if we're too dark too early. So we have to find that sweet spot. We can see those lips, her lips there are much darker, so let's work on that with the light mixture, shall we? Remember, her lips are also turning towards the light and away from the light, both left to right and up and down. We're really just painting the effects of light on the form of the person we're painting. So I'm at 25 psi, and I have the pack valve really low, adjusted down, so I'm probably around 15 psi, but on the compressor it is at 25 psi. Just set it and forget it. That's my motto. As long as you have a pack valve or a Mac valve, it's a lot easier. Especially when you're doing tight details and very low viscosity like I'm working on right now. Oh wow, Willie said the school system that he went to was a joke. I'm sorry to hear that. And oh, Blue says that was the main reason she put art down as a teen. You know what? It's okay, you know. That's what makes you the artist you are today, and you really would not want to trade that. So, you know, those years away really gives you, I think, the appreciation that you have and the seriousness that I see in your work, Blue. So it's a good thing. We just have to look at it that way, right? I think so. Yes, Blue, you're doing so well. we'll come back and we'll refine this as we go, especially the Cupid's bow. Rome is not built in a day, so the same thing. We're just going to, we're going to concentrate on the edges as we go. And you see, we have some nice value going on here, and then we're going to come up here and we're going to refine some of the darks and work on the some of the details in her cute eyebrow there. And Roy says blue. Oh yes, so blue shows a lot of her work also on Instagram. This stuff is really great. The ginger, when you juice ginger, it's really fantastic. It's an anti-inflammatory, and I see it like in my face. The puffiness goes down a little bit in my hands. I just feel a lot better, and it also helps to burn calories. And so and I put about this much ginger in there, maybe about 1.5 inches, and it really makes you feel great. And the one thing about juicing is you have to juice every day. And if anyone ever interested, just let me know. I guarantee if you do just one juice a day, and you do that for a month, I guarantee you come back to me and say, Tim, I've never felt better. Because it's not gonna cure everything, but it's gonna take away the severity of whatever's going on with you. And I'm telling you, it's just, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Ginger is, yes, Michelle, I love ginger. I also started putting, not today, but yesterday, day before, fresh turmeric. And what I read about fresh turmeric is that you have to actually put some cayenne pepper in your juice, otherwise you won't absorb it. That turmeric needs something like a spiciness to actually, like black pepper or cayenne pepper, to actually go ahead and allow you to absorb it. So I just read that the day before yesterday, so I'm like, oh man, I've been doing it wrong. But just like art, I find nutrition and juicing and exercise, you just get more informed as you go. Alright, so remember, we're going to darken this area of the lips a little bit. Increase my distance. Also the shape of the dark here on this side. I'm pumping that trigger because it gives me so much more control than the 1 second rule. Let that dry. Again, I'm so tempted to just go in there and just, get out those lights, but that's where I have to, and you have to have that restraint. Here I didn't work on this side, so I can come down here. Oh, Patty, have a great night. It's always a pleasure, and thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you don't work too hard tomorrow. And have a wonderful weekend. It's all about anatomy and looking at the three-dimensional form and how she's blocking the light and how she's facing the light. That's what it's all about. Okay, so let's go ahead. What I see here in her eyebrow is that it's darker as it gets, so you have this light area right here where it's lighter, and then it gets darker and then lighter again. So we're not going to go ahead and paint all the different eyelashes yet, individual eyelashes. But what we are going to do is we are going to go in the direction of the eyelashes, the eyebrow, I should say. Okay. So let's make this happen. We're going in the direction of the grain of the eyebrow. See how it's darker right here, and then we'll see where it's lighter and gets darker again. But still, we just want to make sure we're going with the grain of that eyebrow, and that will help, because down the line you can see that your strokes are going in that direction, and whether you're coming in with the eraser to pluck out some of the negative shapes, and also you're going in with the airbrush or the paintbrush to paint in the positive shapes. So it's 10:30, Roy. Willie, you know what that means. Okay, so you can see right here where I went a little south as far as the detail. So in her eye, I made her eyelid very, very small. So I have to fix that. Thank God for the light mixture, and also for the eraser. And I'm just going to make sure that I get this correct. Even with the 1 second rule and everything and all the different tools you have to get measurements correct, we're still human. We're still gonna have to, you know, really pay attention to what we did and make sure that it represents the model that we're painting. Okay, so what we do with one eye, we're going to do with the other. Let's move on over there. Let's see what's going on with the other eye. If we do need to make any changes, yes. So we can work on this eyebrow and also look at the value changes, the subtle value changes, and go from there. So let's do that. Hey Frankie, how you doing? Frankie Falcone, how are you? I believe this is the first time I see you here. Were you here with a different name, or do I know you from, let's say, Instagram or Facebook or even high school? Because, you know, it's so great. We have Mama Llama, who I went to high school with and is a dear friend. So it's so great. You never know who's going to stop by, you know? Sheila Ponce. She's so great. Oh, nameless subscribers back. So great. Remember, you want to put that, we want to go ahead and put the magnets real close. You don't want billowing. Billowing like a sail, not bellowing like somebody yelling. I want to make sure I don't oversaturate, especially next to, you know, your Mylar, because that will actually beat up on the surface. So, is Coast Airbrush still doing their live streams on Wednesday nights, guys? So it's much darker here on this end here. There we go. I know for the Hispanics out there, Frankie Falcone would be if you're Hispanic, because Falcone is a not so common last name in Latin America and Spain, but it is common enough, you know. But you might be a Falcons fan. Is it that you're a Falcons fan, or your last name is Falcone, Frankie? Shout out to my Latin subscribers out there. pumping that trigger. And let's take a look and see how we're doing. Okay, so you see we're actually getting more information in the eyes. It's all coming out together. Oh, just a screen name, Frankie. Very cool. I'm actually an Atlanta Falcons fan. Okay, so moving around, sort of bobbing and weaving, you know, jabbing and moving. That's kind of how I like to describe the first four. I would say the first 3.5 to 4 of these sessions, you know. They're 2-hour sessions, so from hour 1 to 6 is a lot of moving around. And then we start getting into micro details down the line. Blue says whoop whoop. So I don't know if many people know that I do speak Spanish. I've been learning Spanish. Wow, I would say since the 90s. And I'm still, you know, learning, and it's not easy. But if I'm at a supermarket or a restaurant, and then someone who looks like me just starts speaking Spanish, they're like, what is going on? So nameless subscriber is an interesting question. He says, does anyone here have any problems with airbrushing, cramping, arthritis, back? So, I remember I was speaking with an airbrush artist, a student, yesterday, and they were having some cramping. And that happens. I mean, anyone's going to have cramping if you're not doing it a lot. And someone like me who does, you know, at least 40 hours a week of airbrushing, I don't get the cramps. But if I stop, like when I was out for the count for 2 days with the COVID-19, and then I came back, I did experience some cramping because it's a very unnatural movement, you know, with, you know, the way you hold the trigger and everything like that, you know. Oh, look at that, blue Latina in the house. That is Boricua. Me parece Boricua. Very cool. Very cool. So I'm definitely going to start making this, making her chin turn, and just very slowly, not going too fast, you know. We have plenty of time to make this happen. And let me see if I can get more of the chin in my reference. Yeah, I'm very fortunate living in the Northeast here, because it's such a cultural melting pot. You know, we have people from Korea, Eastern Europe, you know, all of Latin America, Asia, the Middle East, and it's so great because everyone is so cool, you know, everyone is really great, you know, and the cultures are just so rich, and it's just so fantastic to learn from everything. So just today I had Peruvian food, and it was really amazing. It's really great. It's like a cheese sauce. If you ever had papas huancaínas, is a Peruvian dish, and it's sliced potatoes, white potatoes, in an incredible cheese sauce, and it has some egg on it. Just amazing. Really, really great. Ah, I knew it. Boricua. Okay, Puerto Rican. Very, very cool. I thought you were Puerto Rican when I seen you in the class. So very cool. Great, you know, great culture. I mean, the food, Uh, Puerto Rican food, if you ever had empanadas or pollo guisado, which is like it's chicken that's cooked with the rice and the sauce, just amazing, just fantastic. And so the nameless subscriber says thinks that his pain is linked to early arthritis when he's airbrushing. And do I have a family history? Oh, he does have a family history of arthritis. Yes. Looking for something that might help. Yes, glucosamine is very good. That's a very good drug that helps with the inflammatory. And also, as I was talking earlier, nameless subscriber, I don't know, but I'm juicing green juice, and there's a lot of anti-inflammatory properties in juicing vegetables such as kale and celery and things like that. And if you juice just one juice a day, I'm not a big fan of people who do it 3 times a day. I think that's overboard, but one juice a day, and it doesn't even have to be like replacing a meal. Just have one juice a day, and put ginger in there as well, and you'll see a lot of that. A lot of those inflamed joints will actually go down. Oh, little Willie's getting hungry, right? Oh, the pasteles. Yes, pasteles are amazing. So, of course, Blue knows this, but pasteles are usually made during the holidays because it's so much work. But when you get the pasteles, it's just like, it's so amazing. And every Christmas I get them. And my neighbor makes them, gets them from the Bronx, and she gives me some, which is fantastic. But if you were going to make pasteles, oh my God, it's really in depth. It's a lot of work, right, Blue? It's a lot of work. Yes, you lose out, definitely. You lose out on the fiber, correct. And that's where a lot of people, when they juice, they think that you're just juicing, but I actually steam my vegetables, so I will juice. I'll make one juice, but the main part of every meal is always going to be, some sort of vegetable, which I like to actually steam. So, like for dinner, I may have some brown rice with some steamed cauliflower and steamed broccoli and some steamed carrots, and have that. And so I do it, yes, because if I just worried about, as Blue said, if I just juiced, it would be not enough fiber, and that wouldn't be healthy either. So very good point, Yes, pasteles are very time consuming. And so definitely think about, how you can get more anti-inflammatory foods in you. I think that's fantastic. And then glucosamine is very good as well. And oh, you need an assembly line, to make the pasteles, exactly. Now, the nameless subscriber says the reason he brings it up is because he was wondering if anyone could recommend an affordable wrist brace for airbrushing. Someone I don't know if Steve's still here today, and also John said glucosamine sulfate, which is cool. Someone like Steve Leahy, he knows a lot. He's airbrushing a lot longer than me, so he is definitely somebody to ask, because I'm sure, in his travels with himself or other airbrush artists over the years, I'm sure he knows. But if he's not here now, next time he comes, we'll definitely ask. And you can see little by little we're getting there. And we're taking our time, no rush. And that's the thing, a lot of people today, oh, Mr. Steve, how you doing? So Nameless was talking about he has cramping in his wrist, and he was wondering if there's any kind of brace that you know of that maybe other airbrush artists have used in the past or yourself. Oh, Willie doesn't know what it is, but he wants some. You would love it, exactly, definitely. And oh, Blue says that she doesn't think that there's anything specific for airbrushing. Wow, okay, so that makes sense. Hopefully, it could also be how you hold the airbrush. Now, I know that Mr. Drew Blair has a very interesting way that he airbrushes, and that might lessen the amount of stress that you're putting on there, you know. John Diekman says, what about wrists for boulders? That sounds interesting. Thank you for that, John. And so very good ideas for you to try. And also, perhaps talk to people who had carpal tunnel, because I'm sure they're experiencing very similar issues. Scott McKay uses a brace, Steven says, and on his elbow, and that's interesting. So yeah, so definitely it might be the elbow. Interesting. So very interesting point. So I want to talk about, let me see if I have a so, you know, it's good. These live streams are not just about, you know, technique, but also different things that can help our journey as airbrush artists, right? So I'm going to see if I can get this other angle going here. And I want to talk about how locking your wrist could make a big difference, okay? So let's see. I am going to come over here. I'm going to bring this other camera here. So we have the 932. I want to bring the 930 camera here. And I'm going to talk about locking the wrists and locking the elbows. And I think this might help as well. But, you know, it's worth trying, right? It's worth seeing. So we're going to do a video device, the 922 Pro Stream. Okay. That's not the one we want. Okay, so we're going to close that one. Nope. Okay, so it's the 930. Let me see. Add source, devices, video. There she is, the 920. Okay, so here we go. So we have this other camera here. And how's the sound? Here's my green juice. How's the sound? Okay? You see my water's back there. So when I'm airbrushing, let me just fix this picture here. Okay. So when I'm airbrushing, I always lock my elbows and lock my wrists. So very rarely do you see me do this. I might do it because I do it so much, but consciously I always would rather, you know, move my body, move my shoulders, as opposed to move my wrists. And I think that if you do that, it might cause more of a problem. So maybe going forward, if you're not doing that, is to do that, is to move your wrists, move your whole body, your whole shoulder. Right? This is how you, and then I do more of this and more of this. Now, doing it hours and hours a day, every day, I might go in and do some of this, but you know, theoretically, this is what you want to do. That I know will definitely help your wrist situation. So definitely think about that. Okay. Let's see if I can turn that off. Okay, good. I hope all these different ideas help, you know. And Blue says sometimes it's about how you sit as well. True, very true. And I can see that. And oh, you can get them at CVS. And John used to have that when he was bowling, so that makes sense. And also, what are the carpal tunnel people use? What are their, you know, that might be something to look into as well. The nameless subscriber says issue tends only to flare up when doing bigger pieces like shirts. Usually fine when doing smaller paintings. Yeah, when you're doing bigger pieces, you might be using your wrists and not your whole body more. So since you are doing larger areas, you might go like this as opposed to like this. So that might be the case, you know. So, and then Willie says, good. Okay, good. Thanks, Steve and everybody. Great ideas. Very, very cool. Okay, let me finish off this juice. The trick with the juice and vegetable juice is make sure that it's palatable, that you have stuff like lemon, lime, and green apples. Green apples are great because they're sweet, but they have a low glycemic index, so it doesn't mess with your blood sugar as bad. Oh, look at that. John says carpal tunnel braces use a palm pad built in. Very interesting. Wow. Very good information here. Very good information. Okay, so ask myself, what are we ignoring, right? And that's always, because remember, we want to cover everything as fast as possible, but still paying attention. So we're not arbitrarily just covering everything in its own time. So this hair area is definitely an area of neglect. So we are going to work on that right now. And we're still with the light mixture. Plenty of time to go dark. Always the grain of the hair, just like the grain of the skin. Okay. Little dagger strokes. One second rule. No way out of the 1 second rule, okay? Never a reason not to do the 1 second rule. Well, never a good reason. Now we may go in, we do have some nice little hairs here, so we will go in with some of the paintbrush techniques as well. But we can use the airbrush. Remember, there's no points for doing everything in airbrush. Whatever is easier, whatever does the trick best, that's your only concern. Sort of some large hairs coming in here. Always go light. You can always go darker afterwards, right? You can always go darker. But as you get more control with the airbrush, you'll find that you will use the paintbrush a lot less. It just happens. But there are no points for that. Whatever's easier. Whatever looks best. See what a big difference it does when you really start covering the whole area of the painting. You start seeing things much clearer. And the painting starts to evolve quick. Once everything is covered, then the changes happen really fast because you're bouncing off different reference points from here to there, and that's when it really starts coming together. And so it's interesting. I always talk about 1 to 4, right? Episodes 1 to 4 or 1 to 3.5. So that would be hours 1 to 6.5. Is usually when you're making the big decisions and you're getting things covered. And then you'll see from hours 7 to, let's say, 7 to 8, hours 7 to 10, you'll see that things really start coming together, because then we're really making smaller forms three-dimensional, and the interrelationships of the values get much more exact, and then we start playing more with edges and coming in with the highlights and the darkest darks. So patience is everything, right? Patience is everything, especially in airbrush, more so than other mediums. Would you agree with that, Steve? That airbrush actually demands more patience than other mediums? Because I find that I can be a lot less patient with pastel or oil paints. A lot less. It sort of sometimes wants you to be like a cowboy, guns blaring, that sort of thing. So you see, I'm not going to go crazy with the hair. I just basically indicated that hair, and look how far we went. Look how that changed things. We're not going to go crazy with the detail when everything else is sort of out of detail. So, oh, John, have a great night. Don't work too hard, my friend. Always a pleasure, and thanks for hanging out with us. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And so you see here, we are just moving around. So interesting, when you have sort of an inside area, like right here. So there are things going on in that area. And we tend not to really think of what's happening inside that area as form turning towards the light and away from the light. So basically, it's the large form of, her head and the side plane. And then there's this stacked form, which are the hairs right here. So, but still that doesn't change what's going on with the larger form. So how we actually make things much more realistic is to pay attention to the larger forms, such as that are inside the hair, like in this particular painting in this area. So let's zoom in and let's see if we could explore that together. So you see, it's not just this voided area here. There are some things happening. So you see the ear, as the ear comes out of the side of the of her side of her head. So it's actually getting more light over here. It's facing the light a little bit more. And we'll go ahead and do that. And there's a little bit more light just as the hair presses up against that her cheek there. It's just a little bit lighter right next to it. Hey Frank Lewis, how's it going? Good to see ya. So glad you're here. So we had Frankie Falcone and Frank Lewis. So glad to see you guys today. And of course, we had Sheila from Art and Design High School, and that was just wonderful. It's always great to talk to old friends. Just going to make this turn. It's a little bit darker right here. Just still looking for that grain of the skin there. And so Steve says by default it offers a wider range of control of the application of the medium. So you're saying, Steve, that the airbrush offers a wider range of control than, let's say, other mediums such as pastel and oil paints, that sort of thing. So at this point, I really want to watch out that I'm not getting stuck in certain areas, that I'm keeping moving. So that's basically what this episode is about. So let's zoom out and let's see how it's looking. Great, so now we can go ahead and remove our shield here. See, we wanted to work on these edges without contaminating the background. And you'll see that's really important. So one of the things I'm learning more as I'm airbrushing more, cleanliness is definitely the best. It definitely is a goal that we should always strive for. And you see how nice and clean that is. I love it. I love how clean the edges are. And, you know, and that's going to go a long way. We are going to go ahead and soften things, but we want to be in control of what's softened and what is hard-edged. And Frank says, what are the true advantages of using ink? Great question. And for those who are with me a while, you guys and girls already know. But why did I go with India ink as opposed to, let's say, working with Createx acrylic or let's say golden acrylic? They're great to work with, and yes, they're wonderful to work with. But for me, I love the way that the inks have a lot less tip dry. And they flow a lot better. See, the airbrush was originally made for dyes and inks. That was the original purpose of it. It wasn't until much later in the 20th century did paint companies really push to have acrylic with the airbrush because it dries so fast. And there are advantages to that. But since I come from a fine art background, I've been using ink since I was 15 years old. And I just love the quality and the way that it looks. It looks more like a fine art piece to me. It just has that kind of timeless quality. Steve says he feels that way, not to take anything away from other tools, but there is just more control that the airbrush offers. Definitely in subtle, micro value changes in airbrush. I agree 100%, Steve, 110%. And so back to the ink. Also, several reasons. Have you ever worked, Frank, have you ever worked with acrylic? Well, you always have to use a pencil. You always have to use pencil lines. And when you use acrylic over a pencil line, it's there forever. Unless you have a special surface or you're using a special acrylic such as Drew Blair's illustration paints. You have the ability to erase, but sometimes you don't. If it cures too long, that pencil line is trapped underneath. I find that the ink does not trap the pencil lines. Even though it's waterproof, it doesn't trap the pencil lines, which is really wonderful. I also find that with India ink, I could use this for an underpainting for any medium, whether it's pastel or oils or acrylic. I could use it as an underpainting. It just works so well. So those are my main advantages. Plus, if you're working in a transparent method like I am, there is no better way. Once you worked in black and white India ink, now I'm not talking about all India inks, the way that I actually sell these pre-mixed light, medium, and dark. Once you work in that method, you'll realize going and diluting acrylic is just not the same as diluting ink. You can dilute ink incredibly far. You can stretch ink in ways that only acrylic is dreamt of. So you can get such a variety of light and dark grays. Just so beautiful. And I really highly recommend, if you haven't tried my inks, they're only $16.95 for a full set of light, medium, and dark. They'll last you at least 6 months, and that's if you're painting every day. And if you're working in black and white, or even if you're working in color in acrylic, you're going to love the fact that you can use these as underpaintings or as fully realized paintings as well. And they also have a feeling of a pencil, you know? They have that kind of graphite feel to them, which is really wonderful, you know? Oh, you did buy some. Oh, great, Frank. Did you purchase from me? That's great. Now, all inks are not created equal. The ink that you want is, you want a good waterproof India ink. And you want a good waterproof India ink that actually dilutes well without separating. And there's only several brands. If you don't go with me, there's several brands you want to work with. You don't want to go with a P.H. Martin, or you don't want to go with FW inks if you're doing black and white, because they're acrylic-based inks. So in reality, just work with acrylic, then deal with those acrylic-based inks. So you definitely want a full-blown, typical India ink. So important. Oh, Frank, definitely. I have several in stock, the parts that is. So if you were to purchase, let's say you went ahead and purchased my airbrush, I would be tickled to death. I would customize it for you, make sure that it's working perfect. I test the airbrushes for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours before I send them out. So you know you're going to get an airbrush that's going to be working perfectly when it arrives, unless something happens in shipping. But I'm a bubble wrap crazy guy, so I don't see that being damaged in shipping. But 100% guaranteed. And I'll go ahead and send a free set of the Airbrush India ink, so you really can just really enjoy what that airbrush is made for. And I'll go head to head with any micron any day. You know, as you can see, this is a very small painting. And look at the detail I'm getting with this airbrush. Not missing a beat, which is really fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to my airbrush. Yeah, I went ahead and put my keyboard away. Now I'm paying the price. Okay, so let's see. Going to get that for you, and I ship all over the world, which is great. Save a lot of money if you're international. Definitely. I pay most of the shipping internationally. I mean, only $5.99 international. That's unheard of. I lose money there, but you know, I want people all over the world to use this airbrush. And here we go. Copy. And let me go ahead and put that in the comment section. Let me know if you see this in the comment section. Great. So you guys see that? That's the link to my website. And you can pay via PayPal, which through PayPal you can pay with credit card. If you have a PayPal account, Venmo, which is great. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at paintedglyphs@gmail.com. I'll put that in as well. if you have any questions. But yeah, $149, you're getting a $400 airbrush. And I say that with 100% confidence. I wouldn't be, I sold my, I went ahead and sold all of my microns once I discovered this airbrush. And being a professional airbrush artist, I live and die on this. I wouldn't be playing around, because I have to do detail. I have to make the work look a certain way. Otherwise, no one would commission me, and I'd be in big trouble. No one would take my classes. So, yeah, I believe in what I sell, and I think that's the only way to sell something, if you believe it. So, it's great now. We can actually go ahead and start turning some of the smaller forms, such as the eyes here. We're getting there. We really are. We're really getting there. How's the sound quality? So, over the last couple of weeks, I actually brought the mic closer to me. Is the sound much better as far as my voice? Did that make a big difference? There's some micro details as creases in the in her eyes, but I'm going to hold off on that. We're just gonna start with the larger forms. One second roll is going to make a big difference, as always. So those who take my classes, I have a group class every Friday night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And last week we actually worked on anatomy. The week before that we worked on digital art and how it applies to painting in airbrush. And then this week we're going to work on the elements of a three-dimensional form in space as it relates to light. And I think that's going to be great. The reason why I say it is that even though if you're not in my class for $5, you can go ahead and attend that group class. Last week I think there was 10 of us, which was really cool. It's like a Zoom meeting, and I present and give a lecture and show examples. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to be part of that, it's only $5. And just go ahead and email me, paintingclips@gmail.com. And then you could also email at paintingclips@gmail.com, or if you're friends with me on Facebook or Instagram, go ahead and give me a direct message. It'd be great to have you there, and I think these are very helpful. And each week, it's these lectures are really going to build your knowledge, and you can apply them to your own work. So, oh, it doesn't sound tinny. Thank you, Blue. I appreciate that. Willie says it sounds fine, and so no complaints from Mr. Nameless Subscriber, which is great. Fantastic, Frank. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to make sure your airbrush is working as well as mine when it leaves my studio on the way to you. So it'll be my honor that you have one of my airbrushes, and so that's so great to hear. And so fantastic. I've lost track of time. We're at 11:15, which isn't too bad. We still have some life left in this live stream, right? And you see how we're starting to get that youthful look as we are able to turn some of those forms. Get a little bit. Now we're turning some of the medium-sized forms, right? And then things are starting to look like her, but we're still not concerned with making it look like her. That's the trap in the early going. We don't want it. If it looks like her, hey, more power to us, right? But we don't want to worry about it. Oh, Frankie says, looks amazing, and he really likes my style of painting. Oh, thanks, Frankie, for the Frankie, Mr. Falcone, I am so thankful for your encouragement. It's great to see you. I hope to see you next week. And yes, as Willie says, don't work too hard. Yes, that's in Spanish. No trabaje mucho. I always say that to my Spanish friends, especially if I'm at a restaurant and I'll say to the waiter, no trabaje mucho, and I usually crack up. Especially when it comes from me. It's like, what's this gringo talking Spanish? You know? It's always funny. Got these negative shapes right here, turning up her cheek. Now, Brad, I didn't forget about you. I'm still going to send you those anatomical photos that I have of the face. Yesterday got a little crazy, and today, you know. Colette, have a great night. Always great to see you. So glad you're here, and thank you always for coming to the live streams. Always a pleasure, Colette. Okay, so we have a little bit darker here. Remember, the light's coming from the upper right, so that means as the lower eyelid is moving to the lower left, it's going to get darker. So we're not just looking, but we're thinking as we're looking. We're intellectualizing the forms, right? So we're not just, you know, being like a Xerox machine or inkjet printer. We are actually thinking about what we're painting intellectually. Remember, turning of the form, right? So as I'm painting this cheek, you can see I'm moving in the direction of that cheek. You see that? Moving into the form, moving in the direction of that three-dimensional form. Now it's not going to make a big, hello, take it easy. Yes, very true. I love that expression, Blue, definitely. And very true. And you see, it's not just getting this value here, but moving your airbrush in the direction of the skin, right? The skin has a direction. The skin has a grain. It's your job to find that, you know? Because you're taking it to that next level. You always want to, you know, do a painting, but every time you do another one, you want to just take it to that next level. And I don't care what level we're on. We're all on the same path. Some people are on this area of the path. Some people are in that area of the path. But always push yourself. Always take things to that next level. And for me, I would say in the last 6 months, my new level has been the grain of the skin. And you'll see that in the female nude that I did not too long ago, the Audrey Hepburn, and now you see it in action here. Remember, when you're going a lighter in value, you are actually further away from the subject, right? I was totally unprepared today. I had a lot going on. I had to run all kinds of errands today. I made my juice and cleaned my kitchen just for the live stream. And literally like 3 minutes before, I couldn't find this painting. I always have my paintings in these manila envelopes. And, you know, I name them. This one is named Curls, the name of the painting. Let's see if I can lower the value, see? But it was like underneath, like I have between all the different personal projects and my commissions and the works I'm doing, the projects I'm doing with my students. It's amazing how many files I had. And this file was trapped underneath another one. And it wasn't until like 9:29 I found it. So we would have been like, so we're going to be doing something different in today's live stream. That almost happened today. So we are in the home stretch. It's 11:20, but I always give you the full 2 hours. Now we're going to make her cheek turn here. Let's remember that You always remember where the light source is coming from. So remember with her, it's coming from the upper left. So everything as it turns to the lower right is going to get darker. So from right to left, it gets darker, and from up to down, it gets darker. So you're getting value changes in both directions. Not opposite directions, both directions. So once again, the group class is on Friday, 8:15 Eastern Time. If you can make it, it would be great, and it's just $5. And it's usually between around 90 minutes. But it's great. You get to see some of the faces along with the names that are on this live stream, which is really cool. And it's a great way to spend $5. Yeah, that would have been interesting, Willie, to figure out what I was going to do, right? Today I'm going to show you how to pull a rabbit out of a hat. You know, maybe I'll make it into a magic show or something. Or we'll do airbrush ASMR, you know. Today we're going to do the airbrush. Have you guys and girls heard of ASMR? It's quite fascinating. But I would imagine how airbrush ASMR would work. Pretty funny. That would be, you know, we had some crazy live streams over the years. Willie's been with me since the beginning. And Willie, I remember we were working on Natalie Wood, and I spilled water on Natalie Wood. It was so scary. I didn't know what to do. It was live TV, and I just stopped and just blotted it with a paper towel, and it just dried, and it worked out. But yeah, you never know. One time a light fell on me. They're not heavy. There's these studio lights that fell. Camera fell. Not too long ago, I had shot 1 and 2 of the Moderna vaccine. That was quite interesting. Yeah. Naval subscriber asks, do I keep sketchbooks? Yes. When I find myself getting stale or stagnant, what I like to do is I have small sketchbooks, and I like to do small paintings in those sketchbooks, like 4x6, 5x7, and that really gets the kinks out. I'm telling you, I mean, really in a big way. So these small paintings that I do, they're not so precious. I can experiment a lot more, do a lot more things, and it really helps me go outside the box and gives me a much better, much more bravery when I'm working on my painting. So that really does help. What I'm going to do, since you did ask that question, I'm going to go get one of my sketchbooks and show you. I'll be right back. Talks amongst yourselves. Ow. Okay, so here are the sketchbooks, and that's such a great question, so I'm glad you answered. So what I like to do, little 4x6, 5x7 sketchbooks, and I'll just take a picture I find interesting, you know, print it out, stick it here, and just work, right? Just have fun, work things out, experiment, just play with different papers, you know. sometimes you want to play with a different paper. So here's another quick example of playing with white paper. This is more like a standard sketchbook, nothing fancy. Show you another one. A lot of times I'll take it out and I'll use it as a piece of my portfolio. So let's see. This is a favorite of mine. I did this one I think during Christmas time. Yeah, but whenever I feel I'm getting a little bit stagnant, I'll go ahead and I'll do this, you know. And this is on white paper. So it's great to experiment and go outside the box when you feel things are getting a little stale. And that happens to everybody. So it's always good to be able to go outside the box with a sketchbook. This is a fun painting I did. Just experimenting, you know. I used Frisket on here, and then when I frisketed her, and then I went ahead and did some ink blotching like Rorschach, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, these sketchbooks are great, Steve, and just, you know, just really, you know, they turn out to be real successful pieces that are springboard to do things that are, you know, quite fascinating. Even just playing with the inks here, you know, playing with different effects, what the inks do and stuff like that. So yeah, great question. I'm so glad that you asked it, because I thought that was, you know, it's not, you don't always want to do things that are always so precious. You want to do things that you are more free to, let's say, mess up if you, you know, did that, you know. So, yeah, the sketchbooks are great. All, you know, you're always great to look at the artist's works, you know. Willie says, that would be awesome. Steve says, love the sketchbooks. Nameless likes one of the pictures that I did. Blue says, working on a dollar store sketchbook. Yeah, I purchased 2 of them for a friend of mine and her daughter, and I can't wait to give them to them. Yeah, the dollar store has some really nice sketchbooks. Brad says, great feed, thanks. She's really looking great. I appreciate that. Take care, Brad. Raul, have a great night. Blue, have a great night. Willie, thanks for hanging out. So fantastic. Yeah, so here we are. We're at 11:29, and this was a great live stream, you know. Great hanging out with everyone, talking, and just, you know, getting everything covered. And now you'll start seeing that although this area looks dark, it really isn't. We're still in the light mixture. Once we start coming in with the medium mixture and the dark mixture, things are going to lighten up, and then we'll be ready for the white highlights. We'll just bring everything together, which is really fantastic. Thanks so much there, Mr. John. I appreciate that. And Mr. Roy, thanks for hanging out. And so really, really cool to see everybody. And Mr. Frank Lewis and Mr. Falcone. Really great to see everyone. John was here, and Patty and Colette, so great. Blue was always a pleasure. And of course we had Sheila from high school. Wow, that was great. What a thrill that was. And we are at 11:30. So 11:30 means our live stream has concluded for this week. I hope everyone can come by next week. If you're seeing this recorded, that would be great if you can come by next week. I'd love to talk with you and answer some of your questions. Hit the like button and subscribe. Helps out the channel. That would be great too. And have a great Thursday. And no trabaje mucho. So that would be great. And as Blue said, kohelo. Take care, guys.